One of the things that service games need to look at is where they get that feedback from. And the feedback, I always think of it as 3 different points you can get feedback from, which is either the designers who intimately know what they want the game to be and how the game shapes up to be. There's also the general kind of feedback that you get online and people saying what they feel, their motivations. And then the third point there is data, which is something that's relatively new in the world of making games. And data's not always necessarily where you find the insights or the hypothesis, but it can be a place where you confirm and understand the context of the first 2 points as well. So whether you're a designer or you're reading stuff online, we can actually check if insights are actually valid or not.
Yeah, I think that it helps with development wholesale, because a designer's intuition or sticking to kind of a design philosophy or principles for a game, they can only get you so far. That's where we innovated with Sea of Thieves, and that's kind of the structure of it. But we're always willing and open to hearing what players liked about the game, what they didn't like about the game, and then looking to bring them along for the journey and improve it alongside them.
I mean, literally by design, it's a sandbox.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to plan everything that a player's going to do.
Yes, exactly.
You want them to emerge and come up with new things.
The whole concept of players creating stories together was, we played to that sandbox nature of the game. Like, we wanted to create almost like a melting pot of different cool mechanics and gameplay features that could kind of coexist together, and you get all of these subtle variances in how they can kind of twist and combine together that create unique and interesting stories for players each time they come back. I think that's kind of the magic of Sea of Thieves for me.
It's one of the reasons why the data from the actual retail game is so important as well, though, because there is actually no way to explore that whole problem space in the development studio. It's not possible for QA to test all of those things out. Yes. Those stories are unique to the players that are there, and so you need to be able to get data from the players that are actually playing the game to see how people play the game, because the infinite space of ways you can play the game is not that interesting, right? You could optimize for any of those things. You need to go out there and find what's actually interesting to the players, what the player base are going to engage with, and steer development in that direction. And I don't think there's really any way of doing that without good player feedback and data to back it up.
Yes. I remember a screenshot going around internally where there was like 10 skeleton fort clouds on, and everyone kind of hit panic.
That was very similar. So that was a screenshot on Reddit. This is 10 fort clouds, and Joe, who's the EP of the product, came to me and said, "Sean, is this a thing? Because if it's a thing, we should find out why." And that was the month after we put Fort of the Damned in the game. So Fort of the Damned was a deliberate way of spawning a second skull cloud, which was player controlled. You expected to see 2 clouds in the sky, that was kind of fine. But, there were screenshots with 3 or 4, and when I went and looked at the data, I could find at least one server where there were a full 10, every skull cloud was activated. So, I mean, the first thing I did there was work out how widespread it was. And it wasn't that widespread when it turned out. It was like 0.5% of servers worldwide were in that state, which was fine, but that didn't really, it still wasn't great. And it made worse a bug we'd seen other times, where when you fought all the way through the skull fort and opened the door, there was no loot, because all of those skull clouds had been active for so long that the loot had despawned. It really exacerbated that. Players engaged with the skull fort for an hour and a half, opened the fort with the key, and there was no loot inside. So we went to look and find it, and I managed to get 2 or 3 of the servers and just timeline them up. And it never happened if a Fort of the Damned hadn't been active, and it never happened if the Fort of the Damned had been completed. And so in the end, I was able to go to Bruce, who was the programmer who'd done some work on that, and say something here is not working. And I couldn't pinpoint the line that wasn't working. I couldn't tell him exactly what was wrong, but I could tell him there's an interaction between these 2 things which causes a bug in live, which saved probably weeks of searching for that thing. Which is it's always awesome to be able to do something as practical as that.